start having their confidence removed from them. Because one of the main definers of your confidence is identity. And if your identity as a male is being eroded, then you can't function properly. And therefore now, although men end up with women who are more anxious than them, instead of leading them, they appease them. And now there's an enormous difference between appeasing and leading. Appeasing puts the lady in control and without boundaries. And an anxious person without boundaries becomes increasingly problematic, and all they do is they start testing you because you jump to their tune.
It's one of the things I was looking at not so long ago about male suicide, and I think compared to women, I think it's about 4 times more men commit suicide than women do. And if you actually look at the age, I think I've said before,
all the more women self-harm.
No. In terms of men, I think it was around about the ages of late 40s, early 50s. I can't remember specifically. I think it was like about 55. And one of the reasons is that men committing suicide is because of the loss of identity or loss of their masculinity, loss of family. Loneliness will have a huge impact on that. In the way they're actually the way the society is looking to make everything as equal as it possibly can. Now, the thing is, if you've got a strong woman, you've got a strong woman. But a strong woman will genuinely tend to find a weaker man because there's a very small. So the stronger men who are, let's say, the top of the pyramid.
The proportion is much less.
The proportion is much less to be able to find one, and a lot of them in that position don't actually want to compete for the position. So they'd rather, I feel, they'd go for someone who are a little bit more compliant, that they can actually have a relationship with, where they don't actually have to fight for position.
Because how do you define strong, for instance? You mean successful career-wise?
That would be one factor.
Yeah, because in today's society, anyone who's successful career-wise tends to be more disagreeable. And because women on the whole are more agreeable than men, on average, then if you find a successful woman, that will mean that relatively she's exceptionally disagreeable, and therefore effectively nobody will put up with them apart from the inadequate idolizers.
That's right. So they'll generally attract
who treat them like goddesses and therefore appease them. But if you appease someone, the one thing that the person who's being appeased doesn't have for you is
they don't have what time. They don't have respect. No, they don't have respect. But what happens is they go into what Carl Jung described as the shadow self. I don't know if you've heard that. So you go into the shadow self. So ultimately what happens is they become a bit more controlling because they're looking to gain some significance elsewhere. And this is where they can also start becoming abusive as well, because they're looking to actually, in some way, even though they're the weaker one, they'll become more controlling, decide who, not wanting them to go out with some of their friends and things like this. They become, and they can actually become abusive because physically that's where they are probably stronger as well.
What, the woman?
No, the man. To actually be able to demonstrate some level of power in the relationship. It's known about going into their shadow selves.
That will be rarer.
Or they'll go and have affairs. So another thing is go and have affairs with someone who's actually weaker, because they will then actually get their masculine significance from that one, rather than being in a relationship with a woman who's actually potentially stronger than them.
You see, most of those theories are clever things and based purely on observation, but don't really show fundamental understanding. They're just clever observations. And in fact, I had one of my old professors once said to me that when he was young, if he didn't understand something, he used to just think he wasn't clever enough. He said, now if I don't understand something, I just think it's rubbish. And of course, the key thing is this: if you know what you're talking about, you understand the underlying principles of something. So essentially, if someone feels inferior, then what they often do is they try and reassert their authority. They don't like feeling inferior, and they try and bring the other person down. And they will try and bring the other person down by critical, by abusing them, and abuse can be passive aggressive. It can be directly abusing them, or it can be not doing things, or it can be being unfaithful. There are all sorts of things you can do if the balance is wrong. But when we say fault, the fault is society's fault because it neglects to remind people of their position in society. We're not the same. We're different. We have the same rights, but just like a football team, just like a corporation, just like the military, everyone has an important role to play in the hierarchy.
Well, that's not what. But people also choose as to actually where they want to be, and I know we've had this argument there before. And I've written an article this week, last week, which I haven't yet published, about. It was originally about Boris because there was a lot of issues about Boris. People were criticising him, they were calling him a Trump clone or a puppet and things like this, and it's made me a little bit concerned. When I say that, people who do those level of criticisms and things like this are very much people who blame the state because of where they are, or blame other people because they haven't got what the others have. They get easily offended. They and all these sort of things is because they don't take personal responsibility, or they get very emotional. Which means when you're thinking when you're making decisions based on high emotion, basically your emotion is high and your intelligence is low, because obviously the amygdala hijacks the rational thinking part of the brain, and ultimately that impacts any level of rational thinking. So you're not making rational decisions; you're making them very much on emotion. So when you see all these people,
that's what most decisions are made on, emotion.
That's where most decisions are made. That's right. Yeah. But the thing is, they're not necessarily the best decision.
Correct.
So they'll do those decisions out of scarcity. They'll make those decisions out of fear. They'll make those decisions for a number of other reasons. But they're not. But the thing is, sometimes you've actually got to sit back. You've got to actually take a step back. It's almost like when you have an argument with someone and you send them a really stroppy text. It's almost worth waiting a couple of hours until you've actually calmed down, because actually, if you think about it, you probably wouldn't have sent it in the first place or written that letter in the first place. You'd have probably done it in a far more rational point of view, and it'd be far more objective for you to be able to actually make that. So we've gone off track as to what I was originally talking
Ross Johnson's article.
So when I talk about that, it's about people taking personal responsibility. Don't rely on the state. As to, if you actually want to make a better life for yourself, you've got to sometimes go and do it yourself, or go and get a better job, or go and learn a better skill, or whatever is the reason. He's not going to give you personal attention, or no politically is going to give you personal attention. They haven't got the time to give a personal attention to every one individual. But everyone thinks that they're speaking to that one individual. They've got to do it collectively. So if you don't like it, you've got to go and make the changes you actually want to. Now, does this mean going and getting a better job? Maybe. Does this mean going and learning how to upskill? Absolutely. But people get easily offended, and I've said this before in the past. You can either, don't get offended. I don't. If someone says something that stings, then actually it's got more to do with you than it's got to do with them. It's because you actually believe them to know that they're right. And if it's not, then the person's not important enough for you to actually be offended by it either.
That's what Jordan Peterson said, isn't it? One of his 12 rules is take responsibility.
And we do. We have to take personal responsibility, because no one's going to do it for you. As soon as you start relying on other people, you've already given yourself a disadvantage.
And yet, one of the messages society gives men by toxic masculinity, by taking their identity, is removing responsibility. So, in other words, removing the motivation to take responsibility, because men start getting resentful, and if you start getting resentful, you end up making excuses and becoming more childlike. So you actually end up with childlike men being abused and controlled by dissatisfied women. That's what society is producing.
And this is where so this is where you actually, there's going to be a point where there's going to be some sort of pushback. And we're seeing that sort of pushback actually now amongst Europe, and we're seeing so many
establishment breakers. This is the key
yes,
thing to
I mean, the
understand.
thing is, there's a lot. So bearing in mind, you've got all these people who are quite vocal about being left, who are very much on the left, and all of a sudden you've started seeing these newer parties, particularly in Europe more than they are here, right-wing parties, in some cases extreme right-wing, which is a bit more concerning, coming into positions of power.
You get comedians like Boris being elected, well, not elected, but getting into power. Like, which other country had this comedian? Georgia? Or
no, it was, I think it was Croatia, wasn't it?
Croatia?
No, it was not Croatia.
But in that area, in any case.
Oh, God. Well, where did the Russians go in last year?
Not sure.
Where was the 1934 terror famine? It's begins with K, I think. Is it K? I can't remember.
Doesn't matter. But the key thing is you get comedians now being elected. In fact, this one was a professional comedian. Although I think he called, as soon as he was elected, he called another election.
Yeah, he did indeed. I don't think he actually wanted the job, did he?
But that's the power of being liked, isn't it?
Yeah.
So much so, in fact, and in fact, research has shown this, that even if you're a professional, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a lawyer,
Ukraine, it was the Ukraine.
whether you're a doctor or a lawyer, people are less likely to complain about you if they like you. So you can still make mistakes, but if they like you, you don't get complained about.
No, but as soon as that balance of the value changes, because if there's no value there anymore, people get value from listening to someone who they think is going to actually give them something, but if there's no value, or you don't see any value in them. And I think this is where Theresa May also went wrong. People stopped seeing the value she could provide as a leader, which is why she had to go. Whereas right now, what's Boris doing is showing value. I'm going to give you broadband, I'm going to give you police.
Yes.
Value, 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 value.
Absolutely right.
Whether he delivers or not is another matter.
Whether he can deliver. Talking about relationships again, there was an article looking at the fact that people are people are losing their confidence, losing their personal confidence. And with a loss of personal confidence, people are not going out and having relationships. What they're doing is they're seeking it behind the masks of online dating.
Like Tinder.
Like Tinder and so on, to the extent that they become addicted, to the extent that interferes with their work and social life. How about that? And of course, if you think about it, it's because people have a less perceived value of being a member of society. And don't forget that's one of the reasons of the rise in male suicide, because society is disintegrating. This idea of diversity is complete nonsense without a principal unifying identity.
Well,
But that's happening all over the place, including simply in the general person having confidence and going out there and having one-to-one relationships.
In fact, I think that's what we should probably talk about in one of the future podcasts or near future podcasts. Is literally about confidence. Guys, I think we've run out of time then, and it's a whole new conversation we could actually start. And I think we haven't got enough time to do so today. So what we'll do is we'll let us know of any thoughts, and I think what we'll do is I'm going to do a bit of research, more research on confidence over the next week, and see where that's a topic of conversation we can actually have, unless something really newsworthy comes up. Okay, thanks very much for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.